Welcome to our new module called classes. In this particular module, we are going to start the object-oriented principles implementation in the TypeScript. So initially we'll see what exactly the classes mean, a quick theory out of it so that the people who are very much new to the programming can understand what are the classes. So in the initial first few lectures, you can understand that. And then later we'll also try implementing few of the examples where we are going to exercise how to create the classes and the objects out of it. Then we'll also see the constructors in detail, the parameters, access modifiers like private, public, protected. Then we'll also see the overriding, overloading, abstract classes, getters, setters, static properties, static methods, and many more exercises we're going to see in this module. So let's quickly start our new module, classes. What is classes? So, uh, classes is just a combination of properties and the methods. Generally, this definition we might have heard, but let's see, just understand this with a quick examples, and I'll assure you in the next 2 minutes, you will quickly understand what exactly the class mean. So let's consider a bank account. So the bank is planning to create a bank account and a structure of the bank account, and then later once they decided how the bank account should work, a bank account should have a number, a bank account should have a name, then a bank account should also have some balance, and we should also give some facility called debit and credit for that particular bank account. So initially the bank officials just deciding how to create this particular structure, how to create this skeleton, how should be an ideal bank account should be. So they are just creating a structure. They are not creating any physical bank account. They are not going to create any bank account for their customers. They are just deciding on paper how the bank account should be a skeleton. So they have decided they are going to create a bank account class. We should have a bank account number. Then it should have an account name, from which person it belongs. It should also have some balance. Then it should have two facilities called debit and the credit. So bank account here is a class. It consists of three properties in it. A bank account is having an account number, account name, and the account balance. And this particular bank account class is going to have two functions, debit and credit. Let's understand from a real-time perspective. So the bank official decided to create a bank account, and any bank account in their bank is going to have three properties. It will have a number, name, and the balance, and in every bank account they want to give a debit facility and a credit facility. So this is what the bank decided, a skeleton created. Now all the people, all the customers who are coming to their bank and saying that I want to create a bank account with your bank, now they will start creating the objects out of it. Let's say the first customer came and want to create the first account, account 1. So immediately the bank officials will create an object out of this particular bank account. And while creating this object, they have to pass what is the account number, what is an account name, what should be the account balance initially. And they have given two facilities for account 1, that is the debit and the credit. Again, the second customer is coming and he's saying that I also want to create a bank account with your bank. So the structure is already ready. So immediately the bank officials are creating the second account here, a second object, and again adding account number to that, the name of the person, the balance initially in that particular bank account, and given two facilities called debit and credit. And the same is happening for all further accounts which are getting created. So what is class here? The yellow dot here that you are able to see, that's our class. So it's a one-time process that we are deciding how the bank account should be, what are the properties will be in that, and what are the methods will be in that. And later we can create any number of objects out of it. So this is what I mean by class. So hope all the people who are new to the programming, new to the object-oriented principles, clearly understood what exactly the class is and what exactly the object is. Now, how to create this class, how to do the implementation for this class using TypeScript, that we'll see in the next lecture. Let's start creating a class inside our TypeScript file. So I'm using the same code and the script.ts file here to create these classes. And I'm going to create the class called bank account, this yellow dot that we discussed in the last lecture. So the syntax is pretty much simple. Just you need to mention a class here, bank account, make sure B is capital here, bank account, opening and closing curly brackets here. And now here, I have mentioned bank account as a class. I need to give these three properties inside that. So let's do it. Account number, it's of type number. Then we should also have an account. We are getting some errors. We'll see what is that later. Let me just complete this. Not to worry on that part. And what's your account balance? It's of type number. So we have created three properties for our class, these, and we are remaining with the two functions called debit and the credit. So let's do that as well. So debit and credit. So hope it's pretty much simple here. And let me just also do a console here. Debit called, the credit function called. So this is what we have created in the last lecture. So now what is this error we are getting here? Let's try to understand that. It is saying that you have created a class, but there is no mechanism for this particular properties to be initialized. What they are trying to say, you have created the class, but you haven't provided any mechanism to give the account number, name, and the balance. So we must give some mechanism here, and that is something called as constructor. What I mean by constructor here, so when we are creating this particular account one, we are going to give information here. That is account number 101, account name Naveen, account balance 1000 rupees. So these are the inputs we are giving to create this account one. So that time, at the time of creation of this object, the constructor is getting called. So we also need to define a constructor inside our class. So constructor, it is going to have a set of parameters. Let me use the exact same parameters here. It is going to receive a number. If you are not understanding the syntax, follow with me for some time. I'll give you more explanation on the same. Let's quickly apply the prettier again. That's it. Okay. So we have created a quick function here, a quick constructor here, which is accepting these three parameters. And let me just assign it to the properties. I'll give you a quick explanation in a minute. Okay, fine. Now, just get rid out of it. Just forgot this particular syntax, whatever we have run. If you're a bit confused, here is our class ready with three properties and two functionalities in this. So we have achieved what we have discussed in the last slide. That's perfect. I want to create the first object account one. My first customer is coming now and saying that I want to create an account with you. Of course, we'll help him. So let account one. Okay, so you want to create a new bank account with us. So new bank account. New bank account. So of course, if I want to create a new bank account here, I need to give some certain information. I need to give the account number, the name of the person, and the balance to create this account. Let's do that. So I'm saying the account number should be 101 and the name of the person is this, and the initial balance is 1000 rupees. So this is what the information I'm giving here. Let's apply the print here. Super clear. Line number 27. What we are doing here, we are just creating an object of our class. The first customer, we are giving them a bank account. Okay, so while doing this, so we are just calling constructor here if you're just observing it. So we are giving the bank account number, the person name, and the initial bank balance. These parameters are going inside your constructor here, and initializing these values. So if you clearly observe, it is just accepting these three parameters and it is assigning to your class members. That's it. And what is exactly this keyword and everything? This will discuss in detail in the upcoming lectures. So for now, you can just ignore that syntax. Let's try to create the second object. The second customer is also coming now and saying that I want to create a bank account with you. That's perfect. So let's do account 2 here, second account, and the balance. So we are ready with here the two bank accounts. So as many as people are coming, we can just keep giving them the new bank accounts because we have the structure ready here. We have the skeleton ready with a class. So we can create as many as of objects out of this. So let's quickly try to console these objects as well. So I want to see what exactly is happening inside this particular account one here. So okay, so this is my bank account, which is having a bank balance of 1,000 rupees. The person name and account number is 101. Okay, for account number one, specifically, I want to see the person name. Okay, sorry. So it's dot account name. And if you clearly observing here, as soon as I'm putting a dot here, it is giving me the list of things available inside that bank account. So three properties are available inside that bank account and two functionalities are available, two methods are available. So I just want to see the account name for this particular bank account. So it should give me the name. That's perfect. So here is the way to create a class with TypeScript and to create an object and to start accessing few of its methods. So let's say now the bank account one, the account one holder, this account one holder wants to perform some debit operation on his account. So what he need to do? He need to call this debit functionality. How we will do that? Of course, the debit functionality, we haven't written in detail how the debit will happen, how the bank account balance will get reduced. We are just calling that functionality and we should just see that the debit called. So account one wants to call its debit functionality, wants to perform some debit operation. Getting debit call. We'll also make it more specific and make sure that the debit functionalities get called for the account one only. So here specifically, I would like to mention the account number, this dot account number, so that I can check for which particular bank account it is getting called, both the debit and the credit functionality. So for the bank account one, it should happen here. Yes, it's happening for the bank account one. Then let's say the account two, the bank account two person is saying that I want to credit some amount to my bank account. So I want to use the credit functionality. That's also perfect. So this time this function should get called here for the account two. So this is how we have seen how to access the properties inside an object and how to also access the functionalities. Now it's time to define these functionalities in more detail. And it's a bank account, how we can keep it more safe, how we can keep the balance more safe. All those details are going to come up in the next lecture. So see you in the next lecture. Let's see how the class will look like after the compilation inside into our the JavaScript code. So this is what the class we have written in the TS file. And if I just open my JavaScript file here, so after the compilation, my class is looking something like this. So this is the ES5 version of the JavaScript, so in which the classes support is not there. So it is just creating some blocks and function and a much more complicated way, something called as prototype and more. We don't need to even go in much detail about this. This is just to understand how the conversion from the TypeScript to the JavaScript is happening and how the JavaScript will be more complicated when you try introducing more and more object-oriented programming. Along with this, also if I see here, so we have written here something called as let keyword. So we are using these two objects as a let declaration here. And if I open the same one inside my JavaScript, so I'm not able to see the let. It is just showing the var. So what could be the reason behind this? I'll just pause for a minute so that you can think on it and let's try to figure out some solution for that. Okay. What's an issue here? So if you just open this tsconfig and see the target for this compilation into the JavaScript is given for ES5 version of the JavaScript. So let's make it 6 here, ES6. Be very, very careful with this particular tsconfig file and make sure once you're done with your experiment, again set it back to the original one. So let's target the compilation should happen and the output JavaScript file should come in the ES6 version. And after the saving here, immediately the JS file will be created. And if you open the JS file now, it is writing something called as use strict mode here. And it is also giving some direct class keyword, constructor, and good functions. And it's almost similar to what we have done with our TypeScript. So the ES6 version of the JavaScript supports the classes. That's the reason after conversion of this TypeScript into the JavaScript, it is also showing as a class because the ES6 version of the JavaScript support the classes. It also support the let and constant keyword. That's the reason it is also showing us a let keyword here. And let's change it back to the ES5 and let's see the JavaScript file. So it's the previous one. So we don't need to be much worried on this. This is just an experiment and to understand how the conversion is happening in background. And we are using the target ES5 here. And we don't need to be much worried about here. We are using the let keyword or everything. The TypeScript compiler will take care of all these things very well in background. Let's work on the constructor a little bit in more detail. So we are having a constructor here, which is helping us to create an object of class bank account. And these constructor we are calling whenever a new object of a bank account is needed. And we are passing a set of parameters to it and we are expecting here and then we are assigning it to the properties. So here, one of the user who is creating a new bank account, let's say the account 3, the name is ID is 103, this is the name, and for this particular person initially we are not giving any balance, so he just want to start with zero balance, so instead of mentioning zero here, so let's say we are not passing any parameter over here. So how so we are getting some error here. It is saying that expected three arguments, but we are just passing two. So what could be the solution here? What adjustment we need to do inside this constructor? And just to give you a hint, we have already done something kind of similar thing previously in the last module. So you should be getting what adjustment need to be done in this constructor function so that it can meet the requirement, and this particular line number 29, the third bank account creation should happen with just two parameters. I'll just pause for a minute. You can think on it, try to implement a solution and give a try. Here we go. So very first thing, our requirement is this particular constructor should able to accept three parameters as well as two parameters. So the last parameter should be optional. So we have seen something called an optional parameter previously. So why can't I mention here a question mark? So when I'm doing that here, question mark, what it mean? So either this particular parameter can have a number or an undefined. And assigning an undefined to this particular property is not allowed because compulsory we should give some value to it. So what we can do here, so we can mention if we are receiving the bank, so if we are receiving the account balance, so in that case, only assign this value. Otherwise, say this dot account balance equals to 0. Super simple. So in this way, the third parameter we kept as an optional one. And now if you see here, the error gone now. So now we can call with three parameters as well as the two parameters. And when you're calling with the two parameter, so by default, it is considering it as a 0. And this we have achieved with a optional parameter. We can also do the same thing with the default parameter. So let me just say it equals to 0 here instead of these optional parameter. I'm just giving as a default parameter. So in this case, it will be more simple. We just need to make like this. So if you're giving a value, well and good. Otherwise, I'll consider 0. So here also you can see all these constructors are getting called very perfectly. A quick note regarding this keyword here that I have told you previously, we'll see in more detail in a separate lecture. So it's time to discuss about this keyword here. So what exactly this keyword is saying that if I just come back over to, on this particular slide, and if you can just see, we are creating an object account 1, account 2, account 3. So that this keyword is representing this entire object. When you are inside account 2, this keyword represent this account 2 object. When you are inside account 3 object and you are writing this keyword, it is representing the account 3 object. So wherever you are calling this keyword, it will represent that current object. So let's see here. So when I'm calling here, I'm saying I want to create account 1. Let's understand here this particular blue circle. I want to create this account 1. I mean this one. So when I'm giving the parameters 101 and the name and the balance here, so it is going to the constructor. It is saying this dot account number equal to the account number that I have given you. So in this particular account object, this particular account number should be 101. In the same object, the account name should be the one that I have passed you. In the same object, the account name should be that I passed you. So this keyword is representing the object in which it is present currently for the execution. So hope it's pretty clear how exactly this keyword is useful here. And if I just remove this keyword here from here, what's happening here? We are using the same constructor parameter here, that is account number, two times, and we are just assigning to itself. So that's the reason to make accessible this particular property of the object, we must say it this dot account number. Let's talk about the access modifiers. So what is this access modifiers here? So we have seen like we are having a different object, account 1, account 2, account 3, and it consists of certain properties and certain functions in that. So we are having these three properties and two methods into that. But when this particular account object is created, so how it is accessible, how this account number, account name, account balance, debit and credit, how it is accessible when we are outside of the object. That is all about access modifiers. What is the level of access is given for these properties and this function, that is what the access modifier. So let's try to understand this with an example. So this is my first account 1. That's perfectly fine. Let me just remove the unwanted things. So this is my account 1. I'm also removing the other things here. So in this particular account 1, I want to access. So I'm outside of my object right now. It's very important to understand. This is my object. And at this particular line number 29, I am outside of my object. And I'm saying, object 1, I want to know your account balance. And I'm just trying to console it. Okay, so what's the balance for account 1 here? 1000 rupees. Let's refresh the screen here. We are able to see. So now anyone who knows account 1 object can directly see the account balance of this particular user, or he can see any details. He can just say account number for this particular account 1, and let's see their account number. So it's not a correct way to do this. So this is not that much protected, right? There is no privacy in this particular access modifier, which is by default available. So what are these objects we are creating, and the data present inside that, we want to give the certain level of access to it. So by default, all these properties and the functions which are available inside these object are public. And that is what the access modifier says here. It's a public one. So there are three access modifiers: public, private, protected. We're going to see public and the private in this particular lecture, and we'll see the protected in the upcoming lectures where we are going to learn the inheritance. So let's talk about this particular public here. So by default, I am saying all the properties and the methods inside a class will be public. So it is equivalent to this one. So right now, This is what happening by the compiler. Even if we are not doing it, so by default compiler saying okay, so this account number is public and the name is public, the balance is public. So anyone who knows account one can just say account one dot account balance or anything, and they even can change the account balance here. So if anyone having access to the account one, so he will directly say account balance equals to, let's say, 300, and let's see the updated balance now. So there is no data privacy in this particular object. So to keep it more secure, and if you don't want to allow this to be accessed outside of your object, so you can keep it as a private. So let's remove this particular public and replace with private for the account balance. So as soon as I'm doing this, if you just scroll down here and try to understand at line number 29, if I'm trying to access what's an account balance for account 1, it says that it's a private property, it is not accessible outside of the object. Very perfect. Yes. So how to access this particular account balance now? So it is only accessible inside this particular class. So if this particular class is providing any functionality like this is my balance, then only you can see, otherwise you can't. So let's say I'm going to create one more functionality here, one more function which is a public. And I'm saying show balance. And here I'm going to console the balance is this dot account balance. So now this particular account one is having a public method, is giving a public method to see its balance. Of course, this is also not that much convenient, but what we have achieved here, we are just protecting this particular account balance with the private modifier for now. And if I want to see now the balance, so I can say log account one dot show balance. Let's see the outcome. Yes, we are able to see, and we can't modify this particular account balance directly. So here is the way we have seen how the public works and how the private modifier works. In the upcoming session, we'll also see the other more details with the classes. There may be a need for a certain field, a certain property inside a class to make it as a read-only. Let's see how to do that. Let's see in this example here, there is an account number. So whenever we are creating an account object here, bank account object, so what is the account number we are giving it initially? So later it should not be changed ideally. So this is a new regulation that bank is putting. Once you are using a bank account number, for example, while creation, then you can't change it later. Right now, if I just go here and say account number dot account one dot account number, I can just change it to whatever I need. So this is right now changeable. If we don't want to change it and the bank is applying new regulations here, so bank will just change the class definition here and they will apply a read only modifier here. So what is going to happen here? This particular account number will be read only and it will just initialize once in the constructor. So if I come here on the line number 32, it is saying that the account number is a read-only property and you can't change it after the initialization. So this is how the read-only property works. Let's try to work on the credit method, the credit function in our class in more detail. So we are having a method called here, something called credit. So we are also having a balance, which is a private. And now if I want to credit some amount to this particular bank account, so the bank account class is giving me a dedicated method to do that, because whenever any credit will happen, so there will be some certain procedures will be handled, and there will be validation, whatever the amount you're crediting, that must be with minimum this amount or it should not be a negative. So all those things we need to handle. And that's the reason there is a separate functionality called credit that the bank is giving us. So let's try to work on this credit method. So I'll just see here show balance first of all to understand what is my balance. So the balance is right now the 1000, and why it is showing undefined here? Any guesses? I'm getting undefined on line number 33 here. I'll just give you a minute to think on it. Yes, we are calling show balance here and we are not returning anything here. So no need to mention inside a console log. Let's confirm. Perfect. So now I want to call count1 dot credit. So I want to credit some amount over here. So right now this credit function is not accepting any particular input value. So we'll say amount. It's of type number, and here this dot my account balance should be plus equals to, or to be more specific, my account balance should be added with this amount. That's perfect. And here I need to keep an input. So let's say I want to increase 100 rupees here. That's perfect. And now I'll try to again call the show balance. Let's see. Yes. So previously the balance was 1000 rupees. Then we were calling to add the 100 rupees here, and the updated balance is 1100. Why it is showing 101 here? Yes, we are just showing here account balance, right? Sorry, account number. Let me remove that. And let me also add log here, doing credit of this amount. Let's see the outcome now. So the balance is this, then doing the credit of 100, and then balance is 1100. That's perfect. Now here, let's understand the magic of object-oriented programming, the people who are new to the object-oriented programming and the scripting. Very first thing, we are just creating an object and later we are just using the functionalities provided by the object. So we are just saying, okay, I want to see the balance. I want to do some credit. I want to again see the balance. It means every functionality that our bank is defined very well in this particular class. We are just making use of these functionalities, and like us, thousands of other bank account holders will use this, and this is what the magic of the object and the classes here. That's perfect here. But with this particular credit, let's say the people trying to just add the 0 rupees here, which is of no use. So bank again should put some validation on its logic of credit, right? So again, the bank can improve its class and improve its method of the credit. So what the bank will do here, the bank will say if the amount is greater than 0, then only this credit option should work. Else, it should say invalid amount to credit. That's perfect. Let's see the outcome now. Yes, it's 1000 rupees, and then we are giving a 0 here to credit. And then what this particular function is doing, it's saying that it's an invalid amount to credit and the credit operation is not performing. So with this, what we are achieving? We are achieving to add the balance to do the credit in very much well validation fashion. The bank introduced a new validation here. The bank also can put some more limitation. Sometimes you might have seen the bank will say, no, minimum this amount is necessary to do the credit. Let's say the bank is saying minimum 10 rupees are necessary for the credit. So, okay, if I'll say greater than or equal to 10, then only this credit will happen. Otherwise, not possible. Let's try to do here. Let's try with the 9 rupees here. It should not work. Invalid amount to credit, and let make it 12 rupees, then the credit should work. That's perfect. So this is how we are applying more and more validation to make our class more powerful, and this particular bank account is working in a well fashion now. Now let's try to work on the debit functionality. So in this debit functionality, again the customer want to debit some amount. So again here will give some input called amount, and here again we'll give the similar logic. If the amount is greater than equals to 10, then we'll allow the debit process. I'll just make a copy out of it. It will be super simple. So doing the debit of, then we should do a minus invalid amount to debit. That's perfect. So let's try to call it quickly here. So instead of credit, we'll do the debit now. So initially we are having 1010 here, and let's try to debit the 100 rupees now. That's perfect. Okay, let's try to combine together. So debit, and again I got some amount, so I want to credit in my account. I want to credit, let's say, 200 rupees. So initially 1000, then I debited 100, then the balance is 900, then again I'm crediting to 200 rupees. The updated balance should be 1100. If I again check my balance, that's perfect. Now on top of this, also many more advanced validations you can put. Let's say, for example, you might have seen, like, the number of times you are checking a balance with your account, or you are doing a certain operation, the bank will give you some extra, put you some extra charges. So let's try to work on those extra charges. So let's say I'm trying to use this debit functionality. So if I'm using the debit functionality three times, so the bank will not charge me anything. But if I'm doing the debit more than three times, the bank will start charging me the 10 rupees, for example, or the certain percentage of whatever the debit I'm doing. So initially we are not working on that count. I'll just try to apply some extra charges on the debit. So this is a new regulation put by the bank on our debit functionality. So let's go to the debit functionality here. So whenever the customer wants to debit something, so whenever customer is trying to debit something, so along with this particular amount, the bank is also started charging some extra amount. So let me just put that extra amount over here inside a variable and say it like debit charges. Okay, and I'll make it a direct one, something like 5 rupees here, debit charges. And here, whenever the debit is happening, from my balance, what is the amount I'm deducting? Along with that, one more I want to debit, that is these debit charges. And here I should say this dot debit charges. So let's see how it works now. So 1000 rupees balance, then we are debiting the 100 rupees, but the extra 5 rupees got deducted from my account due to the debit charges. And in this particular debit process, we can also display here like debit charges applied. So that we can also see that very carefully here. That's perfect. So along with this 100 rupees, extra 5 rupees charges are applied, and your updated balance is 895. Okay, here we go. So we have applied an extra charge, and now there is a quick task to you. I'll just take a pause for a minute, and now you need to think on a logic that you should allow a debit for 3 times free of cost. If the same customer who is doing a debit more than 3 times, then only you should start applying these debit charges. So if initially I'm just making the first debit, so it should not apply these five. When I'm doing it the fourth time, then this extra 5 rupees should be applied as a debit charges. So I'm just taking a pause for a minute so that you can think on this logic. You can pause the video and try to write the code. And anyway, I'll show you how to do that. Perfect. Hope you got the answer. So let's try to solve this problem here. So very first thing, what I'll do here, I'll create a variable here called a property here, and I'll say number of debits. It's a number. Initially, the number of debits will be 0. Then, whenever any debit is happening, whenever any successful debit is happening, so whenever any successful debit is happening, it means here, what I'll do, I'll just increase this count whenever any successful debit is happening. That's perfect. And with this, what I'm getting, This is the first debit, second debit. I'm getting that number of debits here, right? And let me increase this here. I guess that will be more correct because initially we kept it zero, right? So it will be the first debit, second debit, third debit, something like that. And let me just console also here the debit hash. I just want to see what is what is the count of debit going on. Okay, so this is the first debit. Then we don't have any other debits. We'll do one thing. Show balance. Okay, here also we'll do the debit again. And we'll make a constant same amount of debit so that it will be easy for the calculation as well. So total 4 times debit I'm calling here with 100. So let's see now. Yes, the debit charges of 5 is applied. Now the updated balance. This is the second debit, third debit, one, two, three. Total 3 debits we are doing here. I guess the fourth debit we are doing here, right? One, two, three, four. Okay, I missed saving the file. So total 4 debits are happening here. That's perfect. So now, before applying these charges here, so what we can do, I can write one more if statement here by stating that if the number of debits gone beyond 3, if the number of debits gone beyond 3, then you apply these debit charges and apply this particular deduction as per the debit charges. Otherwise, let's do it in a normal way and don't even print this console. Debit charges are applied. So this is what the new regulation the bank is putting with their class, and accordingly all the bank accounts will work now. Let's try to see. It's very interesting. We are having a balance of 1,000 rupees. The first debit is happening of 100 rupees. The updated balance is 900. Second debit 100 rupees, 800. Very interesting here to see the 5 rupees of deduction charges are not getting applied till the third transaction, till the fourth transaction, sorry. So it's an 800. Again, the third debit, it's a 700. When the fourth debit is happening, and here we are again deducting 100, there the 5 rupees got extra deducted. And let's at the end print the balance here. So at the end here, extra 5 rupees are getting deducted. And from now onwards, whatever the extra debits will happen on top of this, the extra charges will be applicable. Now let's see the bank changing some its regulation and something, and it's saying that okay, so I was allowing you 3 free debits, right? So we can also make they can also make it only 2 debits in upcoming days, maybe 5. And they can also make it per month, per year, whatever it could be. So these extra logics putting over here, it's not a big deal. They just need to change this class behavior, this class functions behavior. And here is a power of the object-oriented programming. These things will help you to simplify in a much better fashion. Let's try to discuss about the static property and what's the use out of it. So very first thing here, we require some functionality in such a way that we want to count the number of bank accounts got created in our bank. So we are having a class here that is bank account, and we are creating the 3 different objects here for this particular bank account, and each and every customer is having their own details inside these objects. So now the problem over here is when we want to count there should be a count that a bank want to maintain, like how many bank accounts got created till now. So what they can do, so can they store that information inside this particular object here? No, because these objects are individual for that particular customer. Bank want to store the count of number of bank accounts created at some common place that bank can access. So of course, it cannot be done inside these objects. So a new way to store this information inside a class, that is called as static property. So if you want to, so till now we haven't stored any data inside a class. We have just used this particular class to create a skeleton, to just create a structure, how the bank account should look like, what all the information it can contain, what all the functionality it can have. but we haven't stored any data in that. So it's time to store some data which is accessible by all the objects out of it. So that is the static property. So to do that, we'll just introduce here a new property that is called count. So the count is a new static property inside a bank account class we are introducing. And now this belongs to the class. It doesn't belongs to the objects. If you clearly observe the account number, account name and balance, these information we are storing in the account, in the object that is accessible through the object. But this particular red colored count, a static property, is only accessible by using this bank account. So now all these objects can commonly use this particular count to just keep it increasing whenever the creation of the new object is happening. So let's try to do it practically how it works. So I'll just remove these credit and debit to just keep it simple. And I'm just collapsing these functionalities here because I don't want to keep it complex for now. Okay, so here a new property called static property, I want to introduce this one, count. So I'll say public, it's a public property. The name of that is count. The data type should be integer and the default value in it I want to give 0 because I want to start with a count of 0. That's perfect. So now here, let's say I want to see how many bank accounts currently we are having. So I just want to access this count variable, this static variable. So how I can access that? I'll say console bank account dot count. Bank account dot. Is there any issue? I guess I have missed something here. Yeah, I missed adding a static keyword here, which is very important. Okay, so let me come back here and say bank account dot count. Okay, let me see the outcome. I'm getting it 0. So I'm able to access this particular count variable by using the bank account class, and that you can see here. It's time to perform the calculation for this count. Now I'll just pause for 1 minute and I'll give you time so that you can write some code. And what you need to do, you need to write some code here, like whenever these bank accounts are getting created, these objects are getting created, you just need to increment this count variable by 1. I'll also give you a hint. So you need to perform this action when your object is getting created. So you can just think on it and write some code, and I'll just take a pause for a minute and we'll restart. Okay, here we go. So how we'll do this? So here we are having something called as constructor, and we have already seen this constructor will get called every time you're creating a new object. So let's say I'm just doing a console here. I'm saying creating new object. I just want to do a console here. That's perfect. And I'm creating two different objects. Let's see the output. So I'm able to see these constructor is getting called every time, right? That we have already learned. And right now we are also confirming it. And one more thing, a good habit that I would like to introduce you people now, whenever you are trying to create any new logic or trying to implement a new functionality, just initially check the flow is working or not. I'm pretty much sure this constructor will get called for each and every new object creation, but still I'm just writing one console so that I can just cross check. Okay, fine, everything is working fine, so that I can start writing my next logic. It will help you to go step by step. Sometimes what happens, you will be keep writing the code by assuming, okay, fine, your constructor will get called, and you will be in constant in implementation of the upcoming logic, but maybe any core logic or maybe any core functionality is missing. So that's the reason, keep it step by step, check yourself, do the console log at every step and keep checking, and then go forward. It might look a bit like a simple steps we are following, but it will help you to reduce the errors in the code that you're writing. Okay, so I got a place here where I can increment this count. So what I will do here, I'll just say bank account dot count. plus equals to 1 always whenever this constructor is getting called. And let's add a comment here as well, incrementing count here. That's perfect. And now let's try to see the count here. Yes, we are getting 2. And again, I'll try to create one more bank account here with a third person. And again, I'll try to see the count. Let's see, it should be 3 now. Yes. So here is the way we are using this particular static property to utilize it from all our code, and we are storing some extra information inside our bank account class. In the next lecture, we'll see the static method, how it will be useful and how it will be beneficial with some of the examples. Let's understand the static method. So we have seen till now the static property called count inside our bank account class, but now there is a requirement, like we should also have some common functionality. We should also have some common method which should be called directly from a class level. It should not be called from our objects. So what could be that requirement? For example, we are using this count. So why can't we create a functionality, a static functionality inside our bank account class, which will give us the number of count, the number of bank accounts created till now. So we are going to create a get count, a new static method inside our bank account. So previously we were accessing directly bank account.count as a static property to understand what's the count going on right now. But we'll keep that private now and we'll use it by using a good method called get count. So let's try to implement it quickly. So here we are using this particular public count as a static, and we are able to see what's count going on. We have also seen the output for that. Uh, Let me just make it more simple and tell you what problems we'll have if you are not using the static method. So it's giving us the count 2. That's perfect. But what if I made it like this and then I'm trying to see the count? Will change this particular count? Let's see the outcome. Yes, it's changing. So it's not correct. This particular count should not be changed outside of this particular class. It should not be allowed to change in this way. It should be only allowed to change inside a constructor like this. So what we need to do at this particular place? I'll just take a pause for a minute so that you can think on it and find the solution. Okay, so what we can do, we can just make it a private. As soon as I make it private, the statement that I'm writing over here at line number 60, 59 is started giving error. Like we can't directly access the count variable. And this is what the data privacy and safety is necessary, because this count should not be directly accessible in this way. So for that, we are going to create a new method here called public, a new static method, and get count. And here we are going to return, sorry, we are going to return the count variable. And here, this will say the bank account dot count. Super simple. And now here, whenever we want to console and see how many bank accounts created till now, instead of using the count, we can't use it now because it's a private one. Even you can see the error. It's a private one. We need to use this get count. Get count. Let's see the outcome. That's perfect. Try to create the new one. And then again try to console it. I'm not changing these values over here because we just want to check the count. We should get the 3 now. Yes, it's working very perfectly. So now the count increment is happening only at the valid place and it is not allowed outside of the class. And this is a way this static method is helping us to get the count. And this static method we are calling by using a class, it is not by using an account. And let's also understand from the slide here, this is a get count method that we are using from bank account class. So hope it's clear how the static properties, how the static methods will be useful to create the practical applications. What is inheritance? So inheritance we'll try to learn with an example here. So basically the inheritance means if you are using two classes and one class is inheriting another class, so the properties, the methods, what is the behavior of the parent class is there that is being inherited to the child class. So we don't need to write the same behavior in the child class. Let's understand this with a quick example and a quick note to the people who are pretty much new to the programming. The concept of inheritance you can very well understand here with an example, and we are also going to see a quick small application with that, with a bank account and then with a student bank account, then a business bank account, how this inheritance will work in this example. Let me just navigate here next. So let's say we are having a simple bank account that we have previously created. So the name of the class is bank account. It is having three properties in that and two methods in that for its functionality. This we have seen very well with some examples also. And this is our parent class. But now the bank is saying that we don't want to give directly the bank accounts to the customers. We want to give two different types of bank account. One is special to the students and one is special to the business people. So the bank want to categorize their bank account on two different types. One is the student bank account, second is the business bank account. But in both these bank accounts, the core functionality will remain same. Let's say both will have the account number, both will have the name, both will have the balance, debit and credit facility. But just on top of this, they will just give some extra facilities to student bank account and they will give some extra facilities to the business bank account. So let's say the bank want to create or inherit this particular bank account in a child called student bank account. This is all bank is just deciding and creating a structure. They are just creating a class. They are not giving any bank account to any customer. This is just they are designing a behavior. They are creating the classes. Simply. Fine. So they are trying to create a child class here called student bank account. So when I'm saying child account, they are performing an inheritance. So all the facilities which are present inside our parent bank account class, like account number, name and balance and these debit credit facility will already part of this student bank account because it's a parent here. On top of this, in student bank account, they want to give few additional options. What are those? That is college name and the facility they want to give, that is a student loan. So one new property called college name they are introducing and a new method in the student bank account they are introducing, that is student loan. So here in the student bank account, how many properties are there right now? Four. Three are coming from the parent over here and the fourth one is the college name. In student bank account, how many methods are there? Three. Two are debit and credit coming from its parent class here and one specially given to the student's bank account, that is student loan. In the similar way, bank also want to give a specialized account to the business people and give some extra facilities. So again, they are inheriting the bank account class here and creating a new child class called business bank account. And in that, they are giving two different new options again, a new property called what's your business name and a new method called here business loan. They want to give a business loan facility also to the business bank accounts. So total four properties are available here inside the business bank account. Three are coming from here. The fourth one is this. And total three methods are available inside the business bank account. Two are coming from here, the parent, and the third one is business loan. So this is what the bank decided. They are going to have two different types of account and they have created the behavior for that. They have created the classes for that. Now they will start giving these bank accounts to the customers, then the upcoming objects and everything will come into picture. But before doing that, we'll just try creating the classes and perform these inheritance before creating the objects. So hope it's pretty clear what exactly the inheritance means and how it works. So let's quickly understand with an example. So in the similar example that we have previously seen, I'm just going to delete everything here because I want to start with a fresh. Of course, I'm going to create the same bank account, but to give you the more clarity, because in the previous example, we were having some static and all, some more confusions. So that should not confuse you with the inheritance part. So let's quickly create the same thing. So this is our bank account. We are going to have the account name in it, account number. I'll also request you people to create the separate one instead of modifying the existing one, because it might introduce you some new errors if you are new to this area. That's perfect. After that, these are the three methods are ready. What I need to do, I need to create a constructor. So the name, then bank account number, then account balance. Okay. And we know here already how to use this keyword and all. So I'm using the same. That's perfect. Let's create the two functionalities. Debit, just mentioning here like debit called, and in similar way the credit. We don't want to much focus on the debit and credit functionality now, because we need to understand the inheritance. Let's quickly apply the document formatter, the prettier, and here is my class ready, the bank account class. And this is what we have seen in the slide. It's time to create our first child class with the inheritance called student bank account. Let's do that. So I'm just collapsing it so that it will look simple here. Class student bank account. Okay, so this is a class that's perfect. In this particular class, what should be there? There should be a college name as a property. There should be a student loan as a method. Let's do that. So college name. There should be a method called student loan. Perfect. Now here we are again getting some error here. Call college name is something is not initialized or something. What could be the reason for this? Again, understand this is a normal class. Till now we are not applying any inheritance. So why we are getting this error? I'll just pause for a minute. So let's try to figure out the solution for this. Yes, because we are missing a constructor here. So let's quickly add a constructor. The constructor, I'll say college name. It's of type string. This dot college name equals to college name. Perfect. We are ready with this particular class called student bank account, which is holding one property and one method in that. And this is what we have seen in the previous slide. Now only the part remaining is to put this particular inheritance. Now we need to make this bank account as a parent class and this particular student bank account as a child class. So how to draw this particular inheritance? So you just need to mention here extends bank account. So this particular extends bank account is saying that all these three properties and the two methods will be the part of this particular student bank account now. As soon as I'm doing this, I'm started getting some errors at this particular constructor. What could be this error? You can just hover your cursor over here and just try to read these errors and just try to figure out what could be the reason. I'll just take a pause for a minute so that you can think on it. Yes. So now here, what this particular class is saying In this particular student bank account class, it's a child class. So whenever the constructor for this particular child account is created, so not only the college name should be given, we should also give the account number, account name, and the balance. Because in this particular student bank account, only the college name is not only property, it is also having other things, these three properties in it. And if you see, we are just making use of college name. So we should also make use of other properties here. So let's copy these three properties from constructor, copy, and paste it here inside a constructor. Now observe here the four parameters of the constructor for the student bank account. We are giving account name, we are giving account number, and the balance and the college name. And here I'm just using college name here for the assignment. Now what to do with this account name, number, and the balance? How we can give it to initialize our account number, name, and the balance? So for that, we need to call a super constructor. What is this super? This super is saying that you are going to call a constructor for your parent class to initialize these properties. That's perfect. And to initialize these properties inside my parent, I need to pass these three parameters which are already available with me. So let's quickly do that. Account name first, then account number, and then account balance. Now all the errors are gone. Again, give a quick overview what's happening here. Inside this constructor, we are giving four parameters. Three are going to the parent one and one is using itself in the child one. So this is how we have created the student bank account. Now it's time to you to create business bank account. And with this new property and the new method in that, I'll just take a pause. You can pause this video and just try to create business bank account. Then later we'll do it together. Let's try to do it together now. Class, and I can just make a copy of this now. So to make it more simple, and I'll just collab it. Okay, so this is my parent, this is my child, and this is the new business bank account that I'm creating here. Business bank account that is extending from the bank account. It should have the business name in it. Then instead of this college name, we should have the business name here. And here also we should have this business name and the business name. And instead of student loan, we should give a facility of business. Sorry, I missed the spelling for this loan at all the places, I guess. Sorry for that. So this is business loan, and here also student loan for it. Okay, so what we have done now, we have created the business bank account class, a child class, and for which the parent is the bank account. So we are ready with all of the three classes. In the next lecture, we'll see how to create a particular object for our student bank account and how to create an object for a business bank account. Time to create the objects for the classes we have created. So let's say now the students are coming and they're saying that we want to create our bank accounts as a student bank account in your banks. So let's try creating the objects for them. So very first thing, whenever we are creating this particular object, now in this particular student bank account object, they must pass four information. One is the account number, then account name, account balance, and what's their college name. And once they are doing that, they are getting the three facilities in their student bank account, that is debit, credit, and the student loan. So let's try to do it. So these are our three classes, and now we are going to create a object for student bank account. So let student account one, and they want to create a new student bank account, and they need to pass how many parameters? Four. Account name, account number, account balance, and the college name. So what's the name of the account they want to give? What's the number they want to use for their bank account? So I'm giving 101. What's the balance initial? Let's say 1,000 rupees. And what's in college name here? I'm giving ABC. That's perfect. This is what we have created an object that is looking here in the slide. Now they can use a variety of functions. They can use a debit facility, they can use a credit facility, they can use a student loan facility. So let's try to quickly call that student account one. They want to use the credit facility. Perfect. They want to use the debit facility. Let's see in output. Yes, they are able to use the debit and credit facility. Very important note here. We are creating an object for student bank account. And now you can see in this particular student bank account object, they are calling debit and credit, which is present inside the bank account. Because the student bank account is inheriting these facilities from the parent. So inside a student bank account, they can call debit credit as well as the student loan facility. And they can also have a student loan facility. So they can also call this function, which is available directly inside the student loan. We are not getting a console here. I guess we missed adding some console. Okay, let me do that. So student loan call. In the similar way, we'll also add the same inside the business one. Maybe we missed there as well. So this is business loan call. Very perfect. Let's see the outcome. Very perfect. Let's move. And again, one more student is coming and saying that I want to create one more new bank account with you. A new student is coming. Let's try to create for him. So I'll again copy the same one, the second student bank account. The name of the person will give their bank account number, what the initial balance, and what's their college name. That's perfect. So we are ready with the second student bank account. Now a new businessman is coming and saying that I want to create a business bank account in your bank. So this one. So let's create that. Let business account one. Again, we need to pass the four parameters: account name, number, balance, and the business name. So what's the account number they want of? Let's say 1001, and then the balance, let's say 5000 here, and the business name is PQR, just a sample. That's it. So we are ready with the new object called business bank account object for our new business customer. And this is the way we create the objects for all the classes we have created here as a child class. While creating an object, it doesn't matter you're creating an object for the parent class, you're creating for a child class. Once you are having ready with any class, it could be parent or the child. The method of creating the objects are similar. It is just that how internally it's working. So hope it's pretty clear how to create the objects for the student and the business accounts here. Let's understand the method overriding. So what's the need of method overriding? First, we'll try to understand. There is something called a bank account here, which is our parent class here. And there is something called a business bank account here, which is our child class. So from my business bank account, can I do a debit? Yes, of course, do, because that functionality I'm getting from my parent class, and the business account people can also do a debit transaction on their account because this debit facility is available. So this debit facility is defined where? It is defined globally inside my parent class. But the business bank account, the bank came up with some new regulation. They are going to give a different debit operation. They are going to give a different debit behavior for especially for their business bank account holders. They want to modify the debit behavior, how the debit will happen from their bank account, especially for their business bank account. But in this case, they can't do because the debit functionality is coming commonly, which is defined from a bank account, which is their parent class. So how to do that? So in this case, the method overriding will help. Whatever the debit method is coming from the parent class, they can override inside the business bank account. And that is what called method overriding. So they can create one more method with the same name called debit and write the functionality in their own way, specially dedicated for business bank account. Let's try to do this with an example. So we have already this debit functionality here that we have seen in the slide. this debit functionality. And now, as the bank decided, they are going to give a specialized debit functionality. So they will create one more debit function with the same name, which is coming from the parent here. They are creating one more new one here. And here, let me just say special or updated debit function for business accounts. That's perfect here. And now from this particular business account, if I'm calling the debit functionality, let's see what happens. So it is calling the updated debit functionality, which we have written over here. And now let's see if we are not having this debit functionality, of course, it will call the previous one. So let's just comment once the debit function here. And if you are trying to call the debit functionality account, on your business account here, so what will happen? It is going to call the parent one. Super clear? So this is how the method overriding works, and it will help you to understand how the you can override a behavior of a particular function inside your child class. In upcoming lecture, we'll also see try implementing one of the example how a detailed modified functionality we can create, and with an example something called like with business bank account, the debit functionality is allowed up to minus 1,000 rupees, or in the normal bank account it is just allowed up to 0 rupees. If you are going below zero, your debit will not be allowed, but in the business bank account it will be allowed up to minus 1,000 rupees. That functionality will build in the next lecture. Yeah. So instead of just writing the dummy functionalities for the debit, let's try to write actual debit operation inside our bank account here, which will allow us to debit an amount where till the time our account balance gets zero, and it will not allow when the account balance will go zero. But in the business bank account, we'll try updating the same method, overriding it and giving an updated functionality where the debit operation will be allowed till the time your balance account gets up to minus 1,000, which is allowed on the business bank accounts. So let's try to implement that. So initially I'm implementing the normal debit functionality inside our parent class. So yeah, so we have just written zero, just a log here, and let me just write debit called, and I'll say here parent class, just so that when we are getting a console, we should also understand from where it is getting called. Uh, Here I will give an input called what amount I want to debit, and here I'll say if what are the balance I'm having, or we'll say let updated balance equals to what are the current balance is there in my account minus whatever the amount that the customer is asking. So this will be my updated balance. Make sure we are not changing our actual account balance. So if this updated balance goes below zero, so we will not allow this debit transaction. So we'll say not allowed to go below zero. Perfect. And here, if it is not going below zero, then we'll perform the actual transaction account balance minus the amount one. Be very careful here. We are not changing the actual account balance. We are just seeing what will be remaining the balance after doing a transaction. And here is what we are doing in actual and changing our actual balance here with by deducting the amount. And here we'll say, okay, this is not needed. And along with this, one more I'll create like show balance, a new functionality I'll create because periodically I'll be keep needing it to check my balance. Okay, so let's comment out all collab all the unwanted functionalities so that it will look simple. So I'm ready with the debit functionality, which is capable of taking an input, which also allows only the debit when our account balance will remain more than zero. And this is what we have built the debit one. Let's try to call it. So here from my business account, I'm trying to call a debit functionality of I want to debit 100 rupees. And before that, I want to also console. Okay, console is not necessary because in show balance itself, we are doing a console. And after our debit happens, let's also try to console again the show balance. If we are having the 5,000 rupees in the business bank account, then we are debiting the 100 rupees. Now we are remaining with 4955. That's perfect. Now let's try to debit 5,000 rupees and then try to show the balance again. So after deducting the 100 rupees in our account, only the 4,900 rupees are remaining. But if you're trying to again deduct the 5,000 rupees, it will go minus 500, which is not allowed in our debit operation here. So let's see how it behaves. So initially the 500 got deducted successfully. Again, we are trying to deduct 5,000 rupees. It is saying it is not allowed and your updated balance is still remaining 4,900. And the 500 deduction got failed. It's saying not allowed. That's very perfect. But now a new requirement came that in the business bank account, the bank decided to give the facility so that people can also debit and go in minus also up to 1,000 rupees. So let's try to build a overriding function here in the business bank account for this. So I'll just copy this function from my main parent class, and inside the business bank account, here I'm going to create the debit functionality as an overriding, and also I'll mention here it's overriding. So again, we'll take the normal amount, what amount need to be called, but debited, and debit call from child class here. Then what will be my updated balance? And here instead of zero, I'll mention when it will go below minus 1,000 rupees, then only not allowed. Till the time you can allow it. That's perfect. Let's try to call the same functionality now. Okay, so we are deducting the 500 rupees here. So the balance is remaining 4,900. Again, we are deducting the 5,000 rupees and it is allowed here. Why? Because we are calling the debit updated overridden function, which is specially designed for our business bank account, and it is allowing up to minus 1,000 rupees. And here, if you go, so it is saying that the updated balance is minus 100 rupees. So again, I'll try to do more debit transaction here with one more 1,000 rupees. So, or yeah, one more 1,000 rupees. If I do this now, it should not allow me because my negative balance will go up to 1,100, which is not allowed. Let's see in this case. Not allowed to be to go below. Here I need to modify. Not allowed to go to be negative minus 1,000, and you can see here it is not going below this particular limit that we have given. So here also there is some limit, and we are writing an overridden function which is giving a updated facility, updated behavior for this function inside this overridden function of our business account class. Let's cover up one remaining access modifier that is protected, and it's a perfect time to introduce this access modifier in this particular situation. So the scenario is we are having an account balance here inside my bank account parent class, and we have already overridden the debit method which is coming from my parent class. In my child class, I have already overridden inside the business bank account class so that we can have our own debit functionality. But the trouble here is that let me just go through the code and let me highlight you. So this is the account balance that I'm having as a public. By default, all these properties are public that we have seen already. So instead of this debit and everything, so we have applied few restriction to have the debit up to the minus 1,000 limit or whatever it could be. But even though, like, I can directly access business account one dot account balance equals to minus 5,000. So here is the output. So even though we have applied some extra functionality and we have written some extra new overridden function here for the having a debit specialized for the business bank account, but still due to the direct access of this account balance outside of our class object, it is getting changed to anything as per the user choice. So it should not happen. So this is not a correct data privacy. So very first thing, we should mark it compulsory as private. As soon as I'm doing it private, so I'll not be allowed to change it directly. But with this, one more new problem is introducing, that is, we are not even able to access that inside our normal debit operation. So if you just go to the business bank account class here and the normal overridden debit function that we have written earlier, so there also we are not able to use this account balance because it's a private and coming from a parent class. So this account balance we kept it as a private now. So it will be only accessible within the bank account class. And right now we are trying to access the account balance variable inside the newly written overridden debit function, which is inside our business bank account. Of course, it should be available ideally because it's an inheritance, but due to the private modifier properties, it will be only available within the class. So what could be the solution for this? We can't keep it even the public. If we keep it public, it is directly available globally, and we have seen what are the problems are coming with that. So there is a third access specifier for this, that is protected. So which will help us if you make this account balance as protected. So it will be also accessible inside your child class, that is business bank account. So let's go to the code, and here instead of private, make it protected. And with this, we are solving the problem and we are even able to access this account balance inside our child class. And with this, we can also confirm that we are not even directly able to access it like a public, which was our initial problem. Let's also confirm that. So here you can see here it is not even showing us to directly access the account balance, and we can't change it. Let's also confirm that. Yes, it's a protected. So we are solving these both problems. So here is the third access modifier, that is protected, we have seen. Let's try to understand one interesting topic, that is abstract classes. So what is abstract classes? Let's try to understand from our same bank scenario perspective. So here we are having the three different classes ready with us that we have already created well here, these three classes. So now out of these three classes, can I create an object of student bank account? Yes, we can, and we have did. Can I create for business bank account object? Yes, I can create. Can I create an object of this bank account class? Yes, of course, we can create here. But what the bank decided now, we are going to just have these two types of bank accounts. And from now onwards, we'll just give the new bank accounts for the student bank account or the business bank account. We will not provide this normal bank account creation object from now onwards. So this is what the bank decided. But for now, if you just come up here and if you just try to create the normal bank account by giving the three parameters which are necessary to it, you can create a student account by giving the next extra additional parameter, that is their college name. So these are the possible. So now bank want to restrict the new bank account should not be get created from this class here. It should be only allowed from a student or a business one. So what we can do, the this particular class we can mark as an abstract class. And when you mark a class as an abstract class, it means that you cannot create object out of it. You can just use it to inherit. And this is what we are doing in our case now. So to do that, you just need to apply a simply abstract keyword over here in front of it. Abstract. That's it. As soon as you're doing this, you can see if I'm just going to the line number 82 where I'm creating the normal bank account So it is giving me an error here. It's an abstract class and you cannot create an instance of it. What is instance? Instance means an object. You cannot create an object of it. So here is the way the bank is restricting creation of the new object for the normal bank account. And here is a practical example how the abstract classes will be useful. In the next lecture, we'll see the abstract methods and the abstract properties. Abstract method. What's the use of the abstract method? Very first thing. So abstract method is a method where we are not defining its functionality. We are just declaring it, how exactly it should be, but how exactly it should behave, that we are not defining or declaring that we should be done in the child class. So let's say in this particular case, in the bank account, anyway, we have restricted this bank account directly cannot create any object. We can only create an object out of the student bank account or the business bank account class. So we are just taking the properties and the methods, the basic functionality of a bank account from our parent to the business bank account here. And we can create an object of business bank account then. But let's say in this particular bank account class, the parent class, the bank introduced one more new regulation. They are saying that if any bank account, either the student bank account or the business bank account, anyone you are inheriting from me as a normal bank account, you should compulsory start implementing the net banking functionality in your own way for the respective class. So it will define in this way. So the bank account parent class will say the net banking is a functionality that I am saying you must compulsory implement when you are inheriting me. So whenever the inheritance will happen, whenever the business bank account is inheriting the parent class bank account, it must implement this abstract method called net banking. So the business bank account will implement the net banking in their own way so that their business bank account holders can use the net banking facility. And again, the student bank account is also doing an inheritance. So it also must implement the net banking facility for the student in their own way inside the student bank account class. So they also need to do that. It's becoming compulsion now because the bank account class is mentioning this as an abstract method. So when you are mentioning it as an abstract method inside a parent class, so you are putting a compulsion on all the child class which are below that to compulsory implement that. If you are not doing that implementation, you cannot create an object of student bank account also or the business bank account also because it's a must needed functionality with the abstract method we are saying it. So let's try to implement it quickly. So very first thing, I'll create a net banking declaration as an abstract method inside my bank account. So this is my abstract class called bank account. And here I'll quickly try to implement an abstract method called net banking. And here I don't need to give how exactly it will work. I don't need to give its definition. I just need to give its declaration. And what will be the return type of this particular method? I'll just say void for now. So I'm just saying that there must be a method whoever is implementing me. So this is what line number 34 we have seen in the slide over here. The net banking abstract method we have declared inside the bank account class. Now it's time to define the net banking method inside business bank account. So let's go to the business bank account here. So as soon as we are coming here, you might have observing some errors here. So it is showing some error here. Let's try to understand that as well. A non-abstract class business bank account doesn't implement all the abstract members of the bank account. So it is saying that it is not implementing the abstract methods which are declared by its parent in the child here. So let's quickly go to our business bank account and here try to implement. So I'll mention here abstract method implementation. So net banking facility is needed. Okay, fine. And I'll just console log net banking for business users. That's it. Okay. So in this way, we have completed the abstract method implementation, the definition inside our business bank account. Now, if I go to this particular business bank account here, my error is gone. The same thing I also need to do inside the student bank account. Let's quickly do that. So it's an abstract method implementation, net banking for student users. That's perfect. Now, if I just come back here and see this is student, this is business, let's try to call student1 dot net banking, net banking for student users, then the business account holders dot net banking. They are having their own implementation. So in this way, the net banking implementation for the business and the for the student account holders both are different and they have implemented on their own way. Let's understand the abstract property. Abstract property is not widely used. Just to understand the concept, what exactly it means and how it works, we'll just see an example over here. So abstract property is similar to the abstract method we have seen. As in abstract method inside the bank account, it will just give a declaration that compulsory you should implement all these functionalities inside the child class. In the similar way, abstract property does. And instead of method, it is just applying on the property. So in this case, for example, our parent class, which is an abstract class, the bank account, it is introducing the fourth property. The name of that property is branch. That's property, they are just declaring it inside a bank. So the bank decided they are going to have a compulsory, the branch must be mentioned for the student as well as the business bank account. So whenever the accounts will get created for students or the business, they also want to maintain the information inside which branch these accounts are getting created. So they also want to give that parameter of the branch name. But the implementation of this particular branch must happen at student bank account and the business bank account. It is their responsibility to implement it. In the bank account parent class, we are just providing a declaration that the all the child class must implement this property. So the business bank account must need to implement this property called branch and also need to initialize and everything. The responsibility of initialization, everything will be of business bank account here to handle this particular property. In the same way, student bank account also compulsory implement the branch property, also take care of initialization and its maintenance. So let's see practically how it's possible. So I'm trying to just create a abstract property declaration inside my bank account initially. So let's go to the bank account here and just mention the abstract, the branch, and the data type I'll mention as a string here. So this is an abstract declaration that we have seen in this slide. Let's go to the business bank account here and do the implementation for this abstract property called branch. And very first thing, as soon as I added this abstract here, both of my classes started giving error because we are missing the implementation for this abstract property in both the child classes. So inside my business class here, I'll mention the branch of string. As soon as I'm doing this, means the error got removed for the class, but the new error is coming over here. Anyone can just guess what exactly this error? I'll just pause for a minute so that you can think on it. Yes, because we are defining here, but the declaration, the initialization part is missing. This is something like a normal class when you will create. You have to add it inside a constructor and everything for the initialization, right? The similar way. So the initialization for this is missing. That's the reason we are getting this error. So you can just go to the constructor part here, and from the user, you can also start expecting a new parameter here called branch in string. And as you are implementing this, it is your responsibility of the child class to also initialize this. You cannot pass it to the superclass, the parent one. That's perfect. We are done with the implementation inside the business bank account. And now, while creating the business bank account, I can pass my last parameter, that is branch. I'm just giving here mobile. That's perfect. We are done with the implementation for the abstract property in the business bank account. Now I'll just give you a minute so that you can do the same inside the student bank account. I'll just take a pause for a minute. Perfect. So let's go to this student bank account class here and start implementing branch. Again, the same error. We have to compulsory include in our constructor. And the initialization responsibility also we need to take care inside the student bank account class. That's perfect. Let's come down here and here also start mentioning the branches. Let's say Bangalore. And for this, the branch is Mumbai. Yes, we are done. So we have performed our implementation for the abstract properties inside the student as well. So here is the implementation. Hope it's very clear what exactly the abstract class mean, abstract properties, and the abstract methods. Let's understand the two specialized methods in the TypeScript, that is getters and the setters. What's the use of this? So we generally create the properties inside our class that we have done previously with few of the examples. But when we are making it private, we are having a couple of difficulties writing some special function to put the value into that, again writing some function to get the value out of it for that particular variables. So to deal with these scenarios, to deal with the private properties inside of our class, getters and setters are used. Let's create a quick example. I'll not go in a much detailed example because we want to understand in detail getters and setters here. So I'll just try to write a quick simple example here. So a class called person I want to create. I'll request don't go logically to understand this class, like what's the practical use of this class, because I'm trying to demonstrate you the technical part of getter and setter here. Let's say I'm trying to define a private property called name. Okay, so before this, I'll just try to go with the normal scenario that we generally do. So this is private. And why we are getting this issue here? Because we haven't created the constructor. So we don't want to go in details of constructor and everything. Anyhow, the initialization is necessary. So by default value I'm giving here. So I'm ready with my a quick class, which is having a private variable called name of that person. Sounds perfect. So let's p1 equals to a new object of person. Okay, so we are creating object of person here, that p1. If I try to console the p1 dot name here, we can't do because it's a private one. So if I want to access this name here, or if I want to assign some value to this particular name, what I need to do, I need to write some custom functions to do that. So let me just comment out this part. So very first thing I'll create get name, and this is a public function I'm creating here, which will return this name here. So instead of direct name here, I'll call my get name public method, which will give the name, which is right now in it. Let's try to also create one more method called set name so that we can set the value for this name. And here we, we will also accept some input. So it's name equals to name. That's perfect. And here we can't assign something like that p1 dot name because we can't access the private property here. So we need to say p1 dot set name. Okay, so we are calling this method, which is setting up a property, private property, and we are also getting it using a public method here. So both set and get are working very perfectly. But we are writing some manual functions over here. So writing the function for each and every variable like this is doesn't make any sense because even though if I want to set a value of a particular variable, calling a function then passing a value, it is not making a great sense here. So for these automation, there is something called getters and setters. So how it will work, I'll just comment out these functionality here so that you can compare it later. I'll also comment this one, and let's create a new class here again with the name person. So now closely observe, I'm mentioning underscore name here, and by default I'm giving a name. So very special thing here for this particular private property, I'm mentioning underscore. It is not compulsory. This is just a general convention which indicates that if you are mentioning something like this, it's a private property and there are getters and setters available for this. Okay, so if I want to create a getter here, so I just need to write a getter. It is automatically giving me the property getter. If I just click here, it is giving me the exact specialized function for that, which is saying it's a public, it's a getter, and the name of that particular function that I want to give. So let's say I'm giving name here. And what I want to return underscore name. So why we are getting this issue? Any guesses? Yes. So we are missing this dot here. In the same way, if I want to set, if I want to write a function something like this, set name, so there is something called as setter. If I just write set here, so the property setter. So again, here I just need to write name. It is also taking some input parameter, which is of type string. That's perfect. And here I want to assign this underscore name equal to the parameter that we are receiving. So now you can compare both of these function, both of these classes. Let me just remove this so that we can better compare. So this was our previous private property. This is now only the difference is there is an underscore here. After that, this is our previously get name, which is just a normal function. This is our getter, which is a specialized function to get a private property out of a class. And this is our normal set method. And this is specialized setter from the TypeScript, which is used to set a value. Let's see how this particular setter and get works. So let p1 equals to new. If I want to set some value, so I can use it something like a normal property. I don't need to call this as a function. I just need to say dot name. And here I'll just mention. So we are accessing it something like a property itself. We are not calling it something like a function here and all. So this is what the benefit when you write the getters and setters and all the libraries which are you can find from the JavaScript, from the TypeScript, they use the getter and setters, and at many places you can find this. And if I want to access this value again, what I can do, I can just say p1 dot name here. That's it. And previously, what we used to write here, previously we used to say get name, something like this function we need to call. Now, as a property, we can use it. So this is a final representation. Let's see the output. Yes. So this is the way getter and setter works and simplify handling of a private property inside a class. You might be wondering about this is a first class that we are created in which there is no constructor. So till now, all the examples we have seen how many classes we have created in each and every class, compulsory there was a constructor. And then we used to call it by giving some parameters over here, something like this. But in this case, we are calling the constructor here. We are creating an object here. We are also calling our constructor, but we are not giving any parameter here. But where is that constructor here? There should be at least one constructor, then only this call can happen, right? So what could be the reason for this? I'll just take a pause for a minute. You can think on it, then we'll discuss in detail. Yes. So this is an invisible constructor that is being added by the TypeScript compiler itself when we are not adding it. So let's say it will do in this way. Constructor, there is no parameter and it's not doing anything. And even though if I just run my application now, it will run exactly the similar way, the way it was previously running. So it's an invisible constructor which is being added by the TypeScript automatically when you are not creating any one and when you don't have any parameter in your constructor. But let's say if you are giving some parameters like this, let's say you are giving some name here like this. So you have to define the constructor with one parameter, because by default, the empty constructor, the this one can only constructor add, the TypeScript can add, sorry. So if you are giving some any manual parameters here, you have to write here all the things that we have already seen, and also write how exactly it will function and all these options. So hope you understood how the uh, by default constructor is being added by the TypeScript. Let me just remove this so that you can understand it later. So that's all. We are done with this particular lecture.